Enter Elias Fernandez, a filmmaker who's very excited about the opportunity to finally document a case that he's very interested in. The case revolves around Aisha Dinev. Aisha Dinev and her brother Aiden were Bosnian refugees entering the Netherlands and placed into a refugee shelter. While at their stay at the shelter, awaiting adoption, Aiden disappears without a trace. At the beginning of this film, we get a little bit of foreshadowing of what's to come. We see Aisha, who at this time is only 4 years old, with her brother Aiden, who's 18 at the time. They're in the woods playing, having a conversation, being filmed by someone that they did not see. So, fast forward a couple years later, Aisha, contacted by Elias, decides she's willing to do this documentary in the case of her brother. During the beginning moments of the film, we see the chemistry starting to build between Elias and Aisha. Elias's very intent is to document and find out what exactly happened to her brother, while Aisha is looking to fill gaps of exactly what happened to her brother and whether or not she believes that one, he left on his own, or there was something amiss with his disappearance. Now, they come in contact with Carl, who claims that he works at the refugee facility that her brother disappeared from. And he tells her that he's also moved by her story and is willing to help her. And while they go to the facility on their way, we soon find out that, well, they're not the only ones making a film either. Once they meet Carl and get a little bit of backstory on Carl, they eventually go meet the director of the facility now called Robert. Now, Robert is an interesting character because during the encounter with Aisha and Elias, you can tell that he's kind of holding some secrets from them.
That's bullshit. You're lying. You recognize him. He's a liar. That's his. No.
Aisha's not satisfied with the meeting she had with Robert and wants to find out more answers exactly what happened to her brother. She believes that this facility holds the key to finding out where Aiden actually went or what truly did happen to Aiden. This is where the film does take this turn. And I'm going to talk about a little bit more about how, for me, I think this pivotal point in the film kind of went astray. Now, Aisha didn't really come off as somebody who was really in dire need of finding her brother. It was almost like she kind of gave in to the fact that maybe he did leave and leave her stranded, which was one of the biggest fears she had. This is why she needed to find the answers that could happen to her brother. But at the same time, you didn't have a connection with the character of Aisha. Now, Elias, for his part, this is a guy who's looking for a breakout story to go into the spotlight. However, the spotlight that he actually got was not the one he was expecting to get. There are many things in this film because once you find out a little bit more about this facility and the mysterious character that's Robert, it does pull you in a little bit more. But this is where the problem with the film is. It has this massive linger, almost like this empty space in the story itself. Now, as you go through motions, you start finding out a little bit more. And spoiler alert, this is where I think the film took a turn that I didn't want it to take. You eventually find out that this facility in particular has a secret that's so dark that even entire small village or town that resides next to this facility is kind of in on it. So the question you're probably wondering is who exactly was the other crew that was doing the film? Well, this is where you find out that, yeah, this is a snuff film. The fact that this facility was used as a means to create snuff films from these refugees. Now, you don't get a lot of that in the film, but the assumption is because these were refugees that nobody cared for, it didn't really matter if they went missing. And this is something that gets mentioned in the film as Elias and Aisha are talking about the case of a missing girl in Portugal, that in Portugal, it was almost international headlines. But however, when it came to a refugee like her brother, it didn't really matter. And this is the driving force behind Elias, because this is what Elias wants to do. He wants to get to the truth. However, when they start finding more and more of the truth. Well, Elias wants out, but Aisha decides, you know what, I'm going to keep going because I need to find out what happened to my brother. Now, like I said, this is the disappointment of the film because I feel like this film could have pushed the boundaries because where you thought they were going was more like almost like human trafficking. Now, in the last Lost or Found, I did the Den, which if you haven't watched the film, definitely go watch the film. And after you watch the film, watch my episode to see what you thought about my reaction to the film. But it was a film about a group of people that they make snuff films. So once we get to the point where we exactly find out who's behind everything and how they're creating this documentary / movie for themselves to present to their community that are all involved in these snuff films. Like I said, this is where I just didn't like this aspect of the story. I think they could have went a different direction. Now, once again, the ending of this film, I did not like at all because they tried to make it into an international headline. It did become an international headline, but the ending of the film, Aisha goes into hiding, and lo and behold, the community that does the snuff film tracks her down to try to find her and basically finish the film that they are creating. Now, if you're probably wondering where I stand in the film, it's lost or it's found. I wanted to like this film. However, because the twist it took wasn't one that I was very fond of. And once again, the Aisha character, I didn't care for her. I didn't get that connection you want to get when it's somebody that's basically searching for a loved one. Something about her character just didn't really stick. I like the last character. As an aspiring filmmaker, I can appreciate what he was trying to do. And it was kind of fun because it is an indie filmmaker trying to make a name for himself. Unfortunately, he decided wrong path with good intention. This film is a lost. Had a high degree of potential. The cast was okay. Elias was probably the best member of this cast. The story is just, I wanted to believe it more. I wanted to basically fall into it. And it just didn't work. There's a lot of films out there that do snuff films. Unfortunately, this was one that, especially after reviewing The Den, didn't live up to that hype of a snuff film. I didn't really care for the ending of the film. I didn't really care for the motive of why they were creating snuff films. For me, I know the majority of snuff films are created in the films we watch for the value and basically the money of people going and downloading it and paying to watch these horrific acts happen. So yes, let me know what you think about this film, Exhibit Number 8, 2022, currently streaming on Amazon Prime. Do you think it belongs in the found footage archives or it should remain lost like I do? Let me know your thoughts. And in our next episode of Lost or Found, we will dive into Creep. And I will have extra help as our guest for that film. Well, it's going to be a psychologist, which will be interesting to see his thoughts about that found footage film. So yes, JR, Horror Fiend TV, Lost or Found. Till next time, peace.